Welcome back to Tipsy Whiskey Shenanigans. I'm Steven, and tonight, whenever the heck you're watching this, we are getting into the controversial or potentially controversial topic of sourcing. Is it good for us? Is it bad for us? Is it killing the bourbon industry? But before we get into that, please do me that favor, like, comment, and subscribe. That helps us out a ton, and we seriously appreciate the support. But let's get into sourcing. So this topic has been on my mind for a while now, and mostly the question I've been raising to myself is sourcing killing the bourbon industry? For those of you who do not know what sourcing basically is if you're starting up a brand new brand or you want to expand your brand, so on and so forth, you buy other people's whiskey to sell as your spirits, or you blend it into your spirits, so on and so forth. There's a lot of brands. I can name so many off the top of my head, like Barrel, Doc Swinson's, even a local one here in Arizona, Del Bach. They've recently sourced their rye whiskeys from MGP. So that's kind of the key of where it's used from. There's a lot of brands out there that are NDPs, which are non-distilling producers. That means they don't distill their produced spirits. Some of them are doing a blend where they're blending in things, so on and so forth. And some just have different lines where it's like they're distilling part of their stuff. And then one line, like for example, Del Bach down here, they make their malts, but they source their rye. A lot of different things. Me personally, I don't mind when companies source. That being said, they have to do it right. And that's where things start to get a little spicy. And that question of, is sourcing killing the bourbon industry or the whiskey industry in the United States at least? Whiskey as of recently has gotten big. Whiskey's getting huge. There's a growth period. Things are getting intense, insane, crazy. And I think that's good. I love. I mean, obviously, I work for a craft distillery here. I have a YouTube channel. I love whiskey and I love sharing that with other people. So I love that the bourbon boom and whiskey boom is happening. I love to see more people get into whiskey. That being said, with that, there's some people who have gotten into the whiskey industry for the wrong reasons. I think there's a lot of kind of money grab brands out there nowadays. If you walk into any stores at a Total Wine, especially, Total Wine is the worst. They are the worst, but also the best because I love their prices on some of the stuff. They're the ones you can always find things at MSRP. So if you find a Stag Junior, you're picking that bad boy up for $65. They're not cash grabbing you. And I love that about them. That being said, if you walk into any of their bourbon aisles nowadays, it is overwhelming as heck. And this is where I think it has a potential to kill the bourbon industry. Because like I said previously, bourbon is growing insanely. More people are going into Total Wines because let's face it, Total Wine is probably the freaking biggest out here in the United States. They own the spirits, consumer end sphere. So with that, a lot of people, when they first get into it, me including myself, will go to their bourbon aisle and usually gravitate towards whatever the coolest label is. And this isn't me saying that sourcing is bad, but there are so many brands out there that are just sourcing crappy whiskey, crappy bourbon, crappy MGP, and calling it their own, obviously. Within reasons, there's TTB regulations where it says distilled in Indiana, but there's no sort of thing where they're open-endedly saying that they are sourcing this, so it's kind of up to the consumer to know. And if you're a brand new user or a brand new consumer, you're not going to know what distilled in Indiana even means. You might get rubbed the wrong way with all of those crappy brand new brands from MGP, so on and so forth, not from them, but sourcing from them and calling it their own, that it kind of turns you off from whiskey. You're like, oh, maybe I should try rum. When arguably, if you're watching this video, I think you agree with me, whiskey is the best. I don't care what kind of whiskey. I prefer American whiskey, but whiskey is the best distilled spirit out there. So I want more people to get into it. And that's where I'm concerned that sourcing could potentially be killing the bourbon industry because it has the potential to turn that, uproar in people loving bourbon, people being interested in bourbon, people wanting to try bourbon, and kind of turn it as like, oh, I tried it, I had a bad experience, I'm out of here, fam. And also has the potential to, make people go down the rabbit holes like ourselves. But I think more and large, I am concerned that all of those brand new brands are just going to push people away from the whiskey industry. I think a lot of NDPs are kind of phoning it in, for lack of better words. They're capitalizing on the fact that MGP is good. So if they say distilled in Indiana, you think it's going to be good. It's not always good. And that's where I'm concerned things are going to get, obviously down. The upside, because now we're moving from the negative to the positive. The upside is, oh man, there are so much great brand new brands out there that, yeah, they don't distill their own whiskey, but they can blend like a MFer. Blending is a fantastic art. But with that, just to name a few, we got like Barrel, Backbone, Sagamore Spirits, we got Doc Swinson's, so many great brands that have built off of this. Penelope just sold to MGP, and I think they're keeping their whole chain intact. So it's basically still Penelope running it, just with more finance and better access to the barrels that they use to blend, which is it's gonna be freaking great. So I think that is the upside to sourcing is, those are going to be the brands we as whiskey nerds understand and we know. We're going to see a lot more really, really good brands coming out of the woodworks from that. And those have honestly recently been some of my favorite bourbons on the shelf. But that's kind of the quick and dirty of sourcing. I really think sourcing has the potential to either nuke the bourbon industry or really help it grow. Or it might just kind of sit somewhere in between. But I really, really hope that with all this insane people sourcing and all these new brands, that it really doesn't hurt or kill the bourbon industry. And I really love, with all of this sourcing going on, the fun, exploratory, crazy stuff that we're getting to see. Because if you haven't seen it in a few past videos from me, I'm a huge fan of exploring, trying new things, seeing what it does. Maybe we finish this in, peated barrels or so on and so forth. All the crazy, cool, fun things you can do when you're just sourcing things and you're being exploratory, like the Doc Swinson's ones. In case you haven't noticed, I've become a very big Doc Swinson's fanboy in the past few years. But I think those are good. That's the good, the bad. The ugly is the upside of what that's going to do to the bourbon industry. But at this point, it's all speculation. I think it has the potential to kill us. That being said, I don't think it will. So I think the bourbon industry as a whole is well intact. That being said, this is a wrap for today's video. Please do me that favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know down below what you thought about this video, as well as what will be your projections of what is sourcing going to do to the bourbon industry, or what do you like about sourcing, what do you hate about it? I mean, again, all different upsides. There's pluses and minuses to everything. Also, check out the Facebook, Instagram, and the Patreon. Links for all that stuff are down there below. That's a wrap for this video. Cheers, y'all. We'll see you later.